Welcome back to the Caffeinated Cruiser. This is going to be a short video discussing the topic of what to do when you get in a motorcycle accident and how to recover from it, and whether or not you should ride again. The reason this has been on my mind is recently a friend of mine who actually bought my first motorcycle, which was a Duke 390, a KTM Duke 390. She bought it from another friend who I'd sold it to after I moved on to my second bike. She had come over as she needed some help because one of her headlight beams wasn't working properly. So after digging into her bike and pulling some fuses and trying to diagnose the problem, we thought we had got it all figured out, and we sent her on her way. About 30 minutes later, she called me and, understandably crying and upset as she had just been in a motorcycle accident. She was going down a busy 4-lane road near my house here in Michigan, and she had gone in front of a U-turn. Here in Michigan, we have a weird type of intersection where basically you can turn in front of oncoming traffic, but you have to yield if they're coming. And another vehicle pulled out in front of her, and she got on the brakes hard and tried to swerve out of the way. And the other car saw her a little too late and tried to move as well, and it was just a little too late. And as the car had passed, from what I understand, she T-boned the rear quarter panel of the car just behind the passenger side door, and ended up splitting the frame. And I'll put some pictures up of the pictures I got of it, but ended up splitting the frame. And thankfully she was going slow enough that it sounds like she basically just went over the handlebars and pretty much bounced and came to a stop. And the bike did a 360, and thankfully there was no traffic behind her, so she didn't get ran over or anything. And when we got there, when checked on her, she miraculously had just a couple scrapes and bruises, and it was incredibly minor. And she was wearing just regular running shoes, a decent helmet, an entry-level summer jacket, and some gloves. And the only part of it that you could tell where she'd even made contact was on one of the gloves. It had the palm slider, and it was a little bit chipped up. So anyway, safe to say she was pretty shooken up, and my wife was with me, and she was a little bit concerned as well, since obviously I ride and she doesn't want me to get into an accident. And as we had some conversations over the next couple days, and at the shortly after the crash, and making sure that my friend was okay, she said that she thinks it's time for her to give up biking. So with that being said, it's been on my mind. Basically, to sum it up, motorcycling isn't for everyone. And when you get into motorcycling, you have to weigh the risks. You have to decide if it's worth the risk. And I've had conversations in the past with friends about, hey, you need to practice this. You need to watch Dan the fireman, and learn better object awareness, and how to cover your clutch, cover your brake, be ready, expect people to pull out in front of you. And throughout that, I've kind of got to a point where I really don't help new riders get into motorcycling. If somebody wants to do it, and they've done their research, and they're committed to it, and they've taken the MSF course and all of those things, I'll give them opinions on a bike and whether or not a bike is safe as far as physically sound. But when I first started riding, I was trying to get all my friends to ride, and successfully got a lot of them to do it. And other than that friend the other night and myself, as far as I know, none of them have had any major accidents, which is good. But that specific friend, I think, was the last one that I pushed into it, or didn't push into it, but helped her get into it. And I guess where I stand on it today is I want people to enjoy motorcycling. I want tons of people to ride. I want my friends and family to ride. I want my wife to ride, and our kids. But there is a lot of risk involved. And I don't know if I want to have that on my conscience, where I got somebody into riding who wasn't prepared for it and didn't really understand the risks as well as I did, and didn't have the maturity or the determination to be safe and put in the time to be a safe rider and practice their braking skills and awareness and all of those things. The first time I ever got on a motorcycle, I actually got in an accident. I was interested in riding, and one of my buddies had some sort of beefed up Sportster. I think it was maybe bored out to be a 1200 or something like that. I don't even know what it was at the time. This was years ago. And he came over one night, and he's like, I'll teach you how to ride. And we spent some time going around a little cul-de-sac by my house, and we decided to go down to a big supermarket down the street and kind of ride back and forth behind the supermarket in the trucking area. Anyway, so I did a few laps around this store. It's called Meyer here in Michigan, and after 3 or 4 laps of it, I started getting more and more confident. Started understanding the gearbox and how to shift and all those things. And the one thing when he was instructing me, he didn't really go over proper braking techniques, and it's hard to do. You're just showing somebody how to move around on a bike, and he didn't talk about progressive braking or the fact the bike didn't have ABS or traction control or any of those things. And even if he did, I don't know that it would have made a difference. So anyways, I'm cruising around, and it was probably about a quarter-mile stretch, I think, behind the supermarket. And I got the bike up to, I think, 55, 65. And felt like I was flying. And as I start coming down this little decline, this small hill, the parking lot basically ends in a 90-degree angle. And I panicked. And I got on the brakes and pulled in the clutch. But I really didn't know what I was doing. And I think, looking back at it now that I've ridden a lot, I think I just panicked, and I think I locked up the front wheel. But I jumped on the brakes really, really hard, and I was probably doing about 30, 35 miles an hour. And I slammed on the front brake and the rear brake, and I ended up locking up the tire and high-siding. So I went over the bars Superman style, arms outstretched. I wasn't wearing any gloves, any helmet, boots, anything like that. And by the time I hit the pavement, I was probably doing somewhere around 30 miles an hour. It slowed down from 55, 60 to about there. And my wrists hit the pavement, then my knees hit the pavement, and I still to this day can't believe that I didn't hit my head or break anything or get majorly injured. I got up shaking, and I checked myself over expecting to find a bone sticking out or blood everywhere, and somehow I was totally okay. The bike itself slid about 120 feet, and it left a big gouge in the pavement where one of the pegs had stuck in. And my buddy Zach, he comes running, checks on me. Again, I'm just like, he's like, "What happened?" And I'm like, I don't know. I flew over the handlebars, and I didn't even know the lingo for it at the time because I was so new to motorcycling. Looking back now, I'm like, oh yeah, I locked up the front wheel because there's no ABS. I panicked and I high-sided, and we ran down to the bike. We pick it up, and Zach looks it over, and he straightens out the levers and whatever else, and he gets on it, does a couple laps, and he comes back, and he basically says to me, "Do you want to ride again?" And I'm like, "You mean right now?" And he goes, "Well, if you don't get on the bike right now, you'll probably never ride a motorcycle ever again. You'll be too scared." And so I kind of sat for a second, and I'm like, well, I do want to ride, so I guess I'll try it. So I get back on the bike, and I'm still shaking, and I'm nervous, and I ended up doing probably 3 or 4 more laps, each one again shaking and unsure of myself. And looking back, that was probably the best thing Zach could have done for me, because I did want to ride. And about 2 years after that, Zach helped me buy my first bike, which was the KTM Duke 390 that my friend Celine just got in an accident with. And as I went through that, it really gave me a lot of perspective on how to ride, what limits to push, when not to push, and you kind of develop that sixth sense of, should I do this or shouldn't I do this? And I think most motorcyclists who have made it for a while and put time into learning the craft of motorcycling, they start to develop that, and they kind of they can see around a corner, they can see when a car's going to pull out ahead of them. And anytime that I start to push the limits or, start to take more risks, I always think back to that moment, as the bike slid away from me and I'm getting up and I'm shaking. And I remember the first time I got on my bike, my Duke 390, I was so scared. All I could think about was that accident and the fact that I couldn't believe I was still okay, and I couldn't believe, I wasn't injured severely. But what it did is it put a really, really healthy fear into riding for me. And I spent a lot of time learning the fundamentals, learning how to brake, learning how how to lock up the tires but control a slide, learning how to trust my tires. All of those things happen. And even now, I just helped one of my buddies get a 1994 or 96 Honda Magna. And one of the things I told him to do was get it up to speed, do the speeds you normally do, and then get on the brakes really hard and see how much pressure you can put on them until the tires start to lock up, see how quickly you can come to a stop. And that's something I've pretty much religiously done. Every year when I start riding, I spend an hour or so basically reminding myself those fundamental skills, reminding myself how to panic brake, object awareness, where to keep my eyes, and constantly working on that skill. One of the things I'd recommend to people is, as you get into riding or you think you want to do it, spend some time watching crash videos, watch people mess up. And I tell people all the time, just getting on a motorcycle, it doesn't mean it's going to instantly combust. That doesn't happen. Motorcycles themselves aren't dangerous. It's the stupid people on them that are dangerous. But watch videos of people making mistakes. Watch videos of people taking risks and then paying for it. And it sounds morbid, but that's something I did so that I wouldn't do those same things. It's hard when that little devil's in your ear saying go faster, or split between these two semis on the freeway doing 80. But watching those videos remind me why I don't do that. And I've always said I want to ride for a long time, so I'm going to try to ride correctly. And it doesn't mean I don't go fast. It doesn't mean I don't have fun. It doesn't mean I don't push the limits occasionally. But it means I do it while contemplating what risk I'm taking, and is this specific spot on the road and the traffic around me and the corners and the risks and visibility, is this a spot where I'm willing to make that risk, or should I wait? And I highly recommend watching those Dan the Fireman videos where he breaks down object awareness, where he tells you what to look for, where he says that side of the vehicle. That's a line that plays over in my head anytime I'm coming up to an intersection or a driveway. I always think side of the vehicle. The concept is basically, if you see the side of a vehicle, you should be ready to stop quick, because there's a good chance they're going to pull out in front of you. And I don't remember if it's his video or Ryan Fortnine video, but it talked about basically treating every driveway like an intersection, and that's a habit I've done. And I think the longer I ride, the less and less that those scares when someone pulls out in front of me or tries to cut me off or swerves in my lane or whatever the case is, those things have a much lesser effect on me and my mentality as I ride. It used to make me really upset, where I'd rev bomb and yell and wave my hands all over. And for me, it's really, if I do end up honking my horn or any of those things, it's because I'm already safe, I'm already out of the line of danger, I've already found my escape route, and then I'm letting the other vehicle know, hey, you didn't see me and you could have killed me. And as I ride, I always cover the front brake, I cover the clutch, especially in traffic. And I know the MSF course says don't do that, and the reason they say that is because of people like myself who didn't know what they were doing, who jumped on the brake super hard and ended up regretting it. But now, knowing those skills, practicing them, practicing how to brake, now that's something I do that has got me out of a lot of trouble, because I was able to stop in a pinch. I was able to find my escape route and get out of trouble, whether that was speeding up, slowing down fast, or again, finding that area on the road or even not on the road where I could go into and avoid an accident. Getting in a motorcycle accident is scary. Inevitably, you might only get one motorcycle accident. In a vehicle, you might get several chances before something bad happens. On a motorcycle, it's probably one or two tries, and then that's it. So take it seriously. Take it very seriously. If you're going to start to ride, know the risks. Know what you're getting yourself into. Don't ride for other people or to impress other people. Ride for yourself. Spend time practicing. Don't get pushed into riding on the road too soon. Don't get pushed into riding too fast. Take your time. There's more to riding than just controlling the throttle or knowing how to use the clutch. Being able to maneuver your motorcycle, being able to counter steer, to lean, to handle it in slow speed maneuvers, to handle it at speed as well, to trust your tires, to brake. All of those things are fundamental skills, and you should work on them like building blocks. And that's something I did. I spent a couple weeks basically riding around a big parking lot, swerving between cones and all those things, just learning how to keep my head up, how to look where I want to go, and experimenting with things like object fixation and seeing how that affected where I was going to go. Experimenting again with coming to a stop as fast as I could. And I do think those things have kept me really safe now, years down the road. And again, that fear of knowing I could get in another bad accident and I don't want to has made it so that I don't take risks when it comes to protecting myself, or I take very little, I should say. I always wear a helmet religiously. There it is. And I invest in good gear, that I will want to use even when it's 90 degrees out or 100 degrees out. I wear good gloves. Not super expensive, but I find gloves that are made of good leather. Typically will have the palm slider on them because that's a major injury spot. I always wear my boots. and they have protection for the heel, they have crush protection in them, they have protection on the ankle bones, so that way, again, if something does happen, I'm not smacking my ankle on the ground and shattering it. I've got those things protected. Everyone's risk tolerance is different, but what I always think about is, yes, I want to be comfortable when I ride. Yes, I don't want to be sweating. But if I came off the bike even at 30 miles an hour just wearing a t-shirt, I would feel that for weeks and weeks. And, I could potentially lose a finger or worse, and I might not be riding again for a very long time. And I think about that. And, with a daughter on the way and about to be a parent, a big thing I've thought about is how to take care of my family and make sure if something does happen to me while I'm riding, knowing that I'm taking more of a risk, I want to make sure that I have good life insurance that covers them and that they'll be able to survive even if the worst thing did happen. Again, I don't want that to happen, but it's things you have to think about, especially as you have a family, especially as you have kids. So that's kind of my recommendation. If you got in a small accident, if you dropped your bike, don't be afraid of it. Get back up, pick it up, be more cautious, learn from that moment, and then ride again. If you haven't gotten an accident yet, don't think you're invincible. A lot of people say you're not a real rider till your first accident, and to some degree that's true. At some point, most people are going to get in at least some sort of accident, but 99% of the time, you're in control. Don't drink and ride. So I hope everyone rides safe. I hope this video didn't scare anybody. Like I said, I want people to ride. I want people to enjoy it, but I want people to think about it. So for me, with an accident under my belt, even though it was a relatively small one with no other vehicles in it, I plan to still ride for a very, very long time. One of the first things I told my wife on our first date is that I will always ride. You will never change that. I will always have a motorcycle. So again, thank you for watching this video. This has been the Caffeinated Cruiser. I appreciate any comments, thoughts. If you've been in an accident, put it down below. If you disagree with me or if you have a certain level of risk tolerance that you're willing to take, put it down below as well. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Thanks so much. Ride safe. Peace.